An honor to be here with you, and it's really great to be back in San Diego. And I say back in San Diego because my first job in journalism was right here in San Diego. I left college, I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, and I got in my little Volkswagen and I drove across country to work for the Los Angeles Times San Diego Bureau. That was my very first job, and so it's really wonderful to listen to you reimagine the city, and it's been wonderful to watch San Diego grow and glow. I am a storyteller, as you just heard, but I'm also a story collector. For 15 years, I have been asking Americans to share their thoughts with me on race and identity in something called the Race Card Project. I created this really as sort of a Hail Mary pass because I wrote a book about my family's very complicated racial legacy, and this was 2010, and at that time, even though we thought we were allegedly post-racial, words that are hard to say right now without rolling your eyes, I thought America was having a different conversation about race and I wanted to capture it, but I thought no one wanted to talk about race. So I created postcards. And I initially started by handing postcards out everywhere I went in America, and I asked people, your thoughts, 6 words, please send. First 10 came back, then 12, then 20, then 200, then 2,000. Then I created a website and a portal to collect these stories. I've been doing this for 15 years. We have collected now more than 750 stories from all 50 states and more than 100 countries. They are people speaking their truth about a subject that we allegedly don't want to talk about, sitting in the glow of their computer screens or typing out their truth with their thumbs, and yes, still going to the post office to send me some of those postcards. My parents are postal workers, so they were thrilled that I was supporting the U.S. Postal Service. What this archive has done is allowed us to understand a conversation about race that people don't usually speak out loud. It's a hidden truth. And in a book I just wrote called Our Hidden Conversations, I shared that archive with you so you could see what people think and talk about in their hidden spaces. The hidden conversation about race is what we're going to present to you today. And you're going to discover that it sounds something like this. We have an ensemble that is going to come up and join us. Yep, come on up. And they're going to line up behind us. And I just want you to understand something. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit because we have a few readers who are not as tall as, thank you. I want you to understand that I'm a writer, I am a word merchant. I have been doing this for more than 3 decades, but the words that I'm sharing with you now with this ensemble, these are not my words. These are the words of Americans. All of these stories come from America, even though we've collected stories from all over the world. These are all from Americans speaking their truth 6 words at a time. The conversation about race that is usually outside of your earshot sounds something like this.
It matters, like it or not.
Respect runs in a circular motion.
Race does not exist by itself.
Race is everything, but it's nothing.
Today's soft segregation still harms everyone.
Black wears me wherever I go. Does not define who I am.
I admit to an unconscious racial bias.
Stereotype is a shackle. Broke mine.
Suit, degree, still afraid of me.
Still working harder than others are.
I am fortunate to be Caucasian.
The power of it all? Power.
Get all of your feet off of my necks.
Blacks complain constantly despite obvious progress.
But I voted for Barack Obama.
Colors run together. Why can't people?
I hear my grandfather's hateful words.
Think Dr. Seuss and the Sneetches.
Pay no attention to buy packaging.
I am still not from Vietnam.
Please stop saying I'm articulate.
Do articulate. Whites also impress you?
Diversity don't count if it's white.
Presumed understanding is worse than ignorance.
What if classrooms can't change racism?
Not Chinese? You must be Japanese. I bet you're good at math.
What do you mean by you people?
I'm not like the rest.
Easy to assume I'm guilty.
Terrified you assuming I'm judging you.
Hardest jails to escape are gateless.
Pride or crutch? Please decide now.
Sometimes I'm angry at white people.
Am I failing my Latino son?
I am not like my parents.
Talking about racism causes more racism.
I really like a black guy. I'm a girl, not a fantasy.
Talking about racism creates more racism.
To you, always the exotic other.
I am more than just white.
Didn't sound Chinese on the phone.
Really? But you don't look Mexican.
I thought you would be taller.
Thank God it's a white woman.
Every now and then, I remember.
Grandparents past, new tree, no roots.
White, whatever I do is wrong.
Black men are so scary.
I'm embarrassed that I'm frightened by black boys.
Minority obsession and majority guilt trip.
Stop seeing my son as a predator.
I was taught fears of others.
Everyone's racist in their own way.
Always putting other people at ease.
You don't have to whisper, black.
There's nothing wrong with my hair.
I got tired of straightening my hair.
Yeah, but you are, black.
I'm light-skinned. My black is harder.
Red hair gets the most stares.
Black kid in my math class?
People can hear the unspoken words.
Just stop making everything about race.
Repeating proper pronunciation hurts my feelings.
Can't pronounce my name? Try harder.
Born an American. I am an American. You don't know what I believe.
Wouldn't have been white 100 years ago.
Yeah, so much depends on so little.
Son upset, called white boy on the bus.
Why must our differences be wrong?
This old wound will never heal.
No, I didn't steal that.
Only racist when I'm at Walmart.
Never eat fried chicken in public. Underneath, we all taste like chicken.
It's hard being the white friend.
You're Mexican, but, you're so familiar.
Not illegal and deserving compassion.
Not all Mexicans do landscaping, okay?
Please, Hispanic is not a race.
Would all my ancestors love me?
Is that your real hair?
You love God, but not me?
You're here because of affirmative action.
No, I am not an exception.
I feel uncomfortable with you here.
Well, racist deniers are the worst racists.
Stop thinking black, start thinking human.
Can't be colorblind and see me.
Yes, I really am her mom.
Is Jewish a religion or a race?
I don't see you as Muslim.
Equating white with racist is racism.
Native Americans voiceless in race conversations.
Our untold stories keep us separate.
Married, male, 65, gray, overweight, invisible.
You got to be careful, right?
Got to stop thinking this way.
Sometimes stereotypes are true. Face it.
Puerto Rican, but everyone thinks I'm Mexican.
I am Polish. No joke.
Race, a weapon of mass destruction.
Progressives always gloss over the truth.
Conservatives distort truth to promote agendas.
Spoke truth, burned at the stake. White people continue to disappoint.
And black people don't forget the past.
As for equality, we got integration.
You don't look Jewish to me.
No, my name is not Maria.
What is that on your head?
Taiwanese Americans, who wants to understand?
I don't think I'll ever understand.
Understand that you will never understand. Hispanic doctor is not an oxymoron.
Yes, white skin, and still Mexican.
Henry is seen, Enrique is invisible.
Rebecca, black maid, taught me love.
A terrible, unnecessary barrier against love.
Mommy, why can't we play together?
Beautiful differences made ugly by fear.
His parents will never meet me.
A smoldering volcano with periodic eruption.
Number one, don't talk about White Club.
Was he Dot or Feather Indian?
So next one is 165.
Native, no one knows I'm passing.
Next is 166.
What is Dot or Feather Indian?
Blood is always the same color.
Being comfortable is my unearned luxury.
I'm not ignorant, just indifferent.
I am white. I am listening.
Race, America, deep scars, tall fences.
Our untold stories keep us separate.
Checked cosmic in the race box.
Total non-issue when the aliens arrive.
There's only one race, the human race.
Race is only in the mind.
Humans' data is 99% the same.
Race is forever. Prejudice is not.
Not real. Still messes with us.
Not real. Still messes with us. Not real.
Not
Messes with us. Not real. Still messes with us. Not real. Still messes. Still messes with us.
Thanks again to everyone who joined us on stage. Do that. They didn't have a look at the script until about 2 hours ago. So that was really, took an act of courage to dive into this.
How would you describe the emotional tone that these kinds of readings create?
It's always interesting when we practice because the conversations that people have, this is almost every time we do this, I always get, I'm light-skinned, my black is harder. And it's interesting how it's like the planets line up, or either my natural hair is not a statement. You often get ones that like speak to you, but it's really powerful to put your mouth around someone else's truth. And so what it does is it allows for people to have really interesting conversations that are in the cast. But many of the things that people shared with us, you would not hear in polite conversation. You know, it really is like eavesdropping with permission on people. So the tone is, it's curiosity. but it's also a lot of courage because we tend to shy away from these kind of conversations in public spaces. The most interesting conversations about race are the ones that you're usually not a part of because they happen in private spaces. They happen in church basements, they happen in barbershops, they happen at kitchen tables, they happen on the side of a soccer field where our kids are playing sports together, and it's the one time where you can say, hey, I've always wanted to know something. And you can't do that at work, but you can do it on the side of the soccer field because your kids, you have this tether between you. This crazy project that started, with postcards in the third floor of my house, allows us to do that.
Now, you been doing this 15 years. Mm-hmm. It feels like several generations and lifetimes.
Yeah.
Trump has happened, Ferguson has happened, lots of things have happened in these years. So how has it evolved, and how has the experience evolved for you?
So, David, I describe what I do as, and we're here, we've got a lot of scientists in the room. How many of you know what dendrochronology is? The study of tree rings, right? When a tree is cut down, the stump will tell a story. And the tree rings in that stump will tell you about what happened in the surrounding community. It will tell you about weather patterns. It will tell you about chemicals that were introduced. It will tell you about the wildlife that perhaps lived in the tree or was surrounding the tree. The tree tells a story, and the tree never lies. It turns out that whale ears do the same thing, that they capture stories and histories. The archive that we've collected over 15 years is a form of social dendrochronology, and that we have captured all of these stories from individuals, not through a census, for instance, where you're answering a question, not through a journalist saying, tell me about something. I just said, tell me about race, and people decided they set the agenda. And so what it has done then, it has captured the presidencies of, it's punctuated by the presidencies of Barack Obama and Donald Trump a second time. It's captured a global pandemic. It's captured a daisy chain of police shootings, which are all presented within the archives. It's captured the greatest period of global migration that we've ever seen. It's captured economic tumult. It's captured the dawn of AI. All of these things are, when I dive into the archive, sometimes what I will do is I'll have a computer screen and I'll say, yell out a word. And I can put that word in the search engine. If you said teacup, and all the stories that come up just that mention the word teacup allow you to see America. But one of the reasons that I kept going with this is when I realized our good friend Michael Beschloss, he said, I know, kiddo, this is a great expense because I run this project by myself, and it was, I now have my own server, because I have so many of these stories. It's so data heavy. He said, you've got to keep going, because years from now, when people try to understand this era, and our era that we're living in will be studied vigorously because of all the things that I mentioned, because we're riding a wave of technology, because we're turning a page in terms of demographics. This crazy project that started with these postcards, and now most of the stories are collected digitally, will help us understand the period that we're living through, because people are saying things that they usually don't say out loud. And so when they're talking about, say, George Floyd, George Floyd's name is not mentioned that much in the archive, but after that happened, the archive exploded. Donald Trump's name is not mentioned in the archive, but if he does something, I was gonna say momentous, and that seems to happen every day, because if you're in journalism, it's like an open fire hose of news, but when he says something, the stories wind up in the inbox, but people don't talk about Donald Trump, they talk about immigration. People don't talk about Donald Trump, they talk about the fear that they can't keep their business open because suddenly everything is more expensive. And so it's a ricochet, but it captures all those moments in a way that will be interesting to anthropologists and sociologists and storytellers and journalists in the future.
Now, when we first met, it was on the set of All Things Considered for many years, and you asked questions, and E.J. Dion and I bloviated. But so you're in the listening business, and so what have you learned that you can share about how to be a good listener?
Well, I think you know this because we've talked about it before. I'm a kid who had a speech impediment, and I make my living as a communicator. And when you were in, David, I'm going to bring you in a secret on NPR Life. David and EJ would come in on Fridays and we would talk politics. And it was one of my favorite points in the week because I always learned so much from you. And as busy as you were, I always appreciated that you would schlep to the studio because, you know, that makes a difference when you come in the studio. But you may recall that I would have to leave the studio sometimes to go across the hall to do a fix. And you don't know what this means because you listen to us on the West Coast. And when you hear us on the West Coast, we are perfect. Because all the fixes have been fixed and all the stumbles have been glossed over. And so if I stumbled over a word, I'd have to run across the hall and say John see, I messed it up there. Kaliveshvili's name again, you know. But I am a kid who had a speech impediment. So my fix file was always heavier than anyone else's because every time I step behind a microphone, and I chose to do this for a living, I have to stare down an 8-year-old. I have to get comfortable because if you have a speech impediment, anybody in the audience who has a speech impediment never goes away. Never goes away. You just learn how to walk alongside it. But it makes you a really good listener. Because in moments where you're not sure that you have the courage to talk, I learned how to be a really good listener early on because you sort of have to just listen and decide, okay, it's like merging on a California freeway. When am I going to find, you know, the space to kind of jump into this conversation in a way that makes me comfortable? And as a journalist, I think that sometimes we forget the importance of listening because we're columnists, you know, we write for a living, we communicate, but a big part of what we do is listening. And I try very hard to do that. And I think about something, my parents were working class, smartest people I ever knew, never went to college. My father always told me, everybody you encounter in this world will teach you something. And if you understand that, you will be good at everything that you do. And I try to bring that into the journalism that I do. And so when I go to a space, I'm listening to everybody. I'm listening to the people who have the brooms and the people who have the keys and the people who have the keys to the kingdom. And I think that that helps me understand. And a project like this has given me almost like a superpower as a journalist because that archive, when people send me their stories, they leave me their name and their number and their contact information. And so I have this special data set that, you know, when something's happening in the world, I go to the archive and I call Julia in Littleton, Colorado, and I call Jim in Sussex, Wisconsin, and I call people in places that I have never visited who gifted me with their stories, and I'm able to have conversations with them that help me better understand an America that I'm charged with explaining to all of you. And I feel like I can do a much better job of that when I'm not just parachuting into a place I've never been to and going to the local diner and putting a microphone in someone's face and saying, I have 30 seconds, tell me what you think. You know, these are deeper conversations.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about those NPR fixes. I once brought my then girlfriend to the studio and I was trying to show off for her. So I said, yeah, that really pissed me off. Oh. And it turns out you can't say that on NPR. Like, I thought all of NPR was about to explode.
Bob Boylan's in your ear, a technical director. You'll be going across the hall to fix that. So San Diego never hears it.
Yeah. One thing I've learned about listening, two things, and I want to get your reaction to the second. The first is I've got a buddy, when you talk to him, it's like talking to a charismatic Pentecostal church. Yeah. He's like, yes, yes, amen, amen, preach, preach. Love talking to that guy. Mm-hmm. He sets that emotional tone. But then what I wanted to ask you about was, in my journalism career, and maybe in yours, I ask people about their lives. Yeah. And how many times...
And you do it so well.
Well, thank you. How many times has anybody ever said, none of your damn business? And in my career, zero. Yeah. I found if you ask people respectfully to tell you their life story, no one has ever asked them. And you're grabbing
No, I'm just giving you an example of that. Yeah.
So now this is a subject that is...
But can we just lean on that for a minute?
Sure.
Because I think that is your superpower also, is that you actually get out of Washington, that you actually talk to people. There are a lot of people who spend a lot of time telling you what they think instead of what they know. And one of the reasons I've always respected you as a columnist is because you're curious. You're curious, you pick up the phone and talk to people, and I believe that that's true, and I think that your friend who's given you the Amen course, you know, Shantae wanted that from all of us, right? You know, to gas her up. I think you do have to create an environment where people want to tell their stories, and that's one of the things I went to these slides just to show you that, you know, to create a space where people can do this. The postcard was a strange little invitation. Oh, you want to know my story? You're interested in my story? My story? And when we created the website where we take most of the stories now, we realized that that was part of the invitation, that it had to feel a certain way. So we just improved the website when I released the book in 2024. And the old website looked, you know, it just was outdated, and it was the wireframe just couldn't handle everything that we wanted to do. So we created a new website, and we noticed that people were not spending as much time on it because it was too fancy. It felt like an Apple store. It was fluorescent. And so I dealt with the team that put the website together, and I made them a little crazy, but I'm like, can we just turn the color temperature down? Because I wanted it to feel like a lamp-lit room. And that made the difference, and that was part of the engagement. So one of the things I've learned is, and I think it's important for us when we talk about listening, is to create yeasty spaces where people can share their stories. Where, you know, because you can tell when someone asks, how you doing? Where it's an empty greeting and they really don't want to hear the answer, or where they say, how are you doing? And you really want to know. And that's our job as journalists, I think, is to create those spaces where we're actually extending an invitation and telling Americans that we really do want to hear their story. And I'm afraid that we don't always do that well.
Now, when you're doing this in red parts of America, or parts where Donald Trump has a lot of support, is it different? What's it like?
Well, you know, so when I'm doing it, that means I'm doing the work around the Race Card Project. When I'm receiving it, so one of the big surprises for me is when I started the Race Card Project, when I pushed the basket on the table and said, tell me about race. First of all, I didn't think anybody would show up because I thought Americans would rather eat their toenails than have a conversation about race. I really did not think that we would start getting stories back, and it was postcards. It was kind of weird, you know. But look at the the intentionality of a postcard. You have to find a pen, you have to find a stamp, you have to find a mailbox. So there's a lot of intent there. And one of the things that has always surprised me is that when I started this, I did not know that I would be on a 15-year odyssey of listening to white Americans talk about race. I didn't even think that was possible. And I say that to underscore something important about the Race Card Project. I'm an African-American woman. It's called the Race Card Project. When we have conversations about race in America, most of them are by, for, and about people of color. That's just the rules, right? We're going to have a conversation about race. It's just presumed, oh, we're going to be talking about those people, not me, right? So I thought that most of the stories that I would get would be from people of color, and most especially black people. Color me surprised. I heard from everybody. I heard people talking about religion. I heard people talking about having red hair. I have hundreds of cards from people talking about having red hair and the presumed temperament that they have because they have red hair. Literally, the jobs they can't get when they travel around the world, how people greet them differently. I have cards from people, a lot of people talking about being in the military. Doesn't matter what color I am, I enter through a different door because I've been through 3 theaters of war. So people talked about all kinds of things, and that's why I talk about race and identity, because a lot of people talk about race and identity. But the big surprise is that in the majority of the years that I've been doing this, in 15 years, the majority of those years, the majority of the stories have come from white Americans. And that was an epiphany for me. I appreciate it because, again, I just didn't, when you have conversations about race, I realized that some of that was on me. Some of that was on me as a journalist. When something happens in America and it has something to do with race, who are you going to see in the studio? Who are you going to see on television? Who are you going to see quoted in the paper? You're going to call Reverend Al. You're going to call, there'll definitely be a reverend involved. It might not be Reverend Al, but it'll be some Reverend Barber, Reverend somebody, right? But how often do we reach out to white Americans who are experts on race or who even have the experience about race? We don't do that. We don't do that. Think about what happened at Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina. When we were talking about the syllabus of hatred that led Dylan Roof to walk into that sanctuary and take those many lives, we automatically talked to black people about their pain, but we didn't talk to white Americans potentially about their pain, because I've been doing a lot of work in Charleston recently, and the whole city was hurting But we didn't ask white Americans what they thought about that, and we didn't ask white Americans to talk about what happened to Dylan Roof. Where did he get these ideas? So I realized that what I did is I put a basket on the table, and white people started to show up, and we started to include their stories in the segments we did on NPR and in the website, and it was modeling. Oh, you want my story? Oh, okay. Here's my story. And so it was a combination of modeling and just being asked, but I genuinely think there are very few verticals that actually look at race in a deep way in America that have this kind of buy-in from white America.
Have you encountered white people who say, well, it's not been my lived experience, I don't know what I'm talking about? Or do people, they do have something to say?
Well, they just, even if they say that, that's part of the story. I mean, we have a lot of people who say, why are you talking about race? And then they write 6 paragraphs. That's part of the story. That too is part of the story, right? I'm white and I'm not allowed to be proud. That's part of the story also. So I don't tell people what to say. The fact that they engage, we don't say what you have to do. Now, there is a certain defensiveness, so that's the stories that I get. You asked about when I go into Red State America. Often when I go into Red State America, it's because I'm invited. And I'm invited because I'm invited by someone who understands that our divisions are causing problems for them. They're inviting me for very practical reasons, not to come and help people lock arms and sing Kumbaya, but because, I was invited to, and some of the corporate work I do, I sign, literally in one case I had to sign an 800-page NDA for a tech company. Well, I can't tell you what tech company, but you can guess. 800 pages. But, in some cases, small factories, large factories, in some cases they're bringing us in because people, when they're tribal on the line, and they're not getting along, that impacts productivity. When people aren't talking to each other, that impacts innovation. I shared with you the example of the shirt tail. One of the factories we went into, he said, I need my people to actually talk to each other because I go in my lunchroom and I see, I am allowed to talk about this company. He said that in Michigan, if all the white guys are over there and all the Latino guys are in the corner, but they're not all Latino, and there's the Puerto Ricans are here and the Mexicans are there and the El Salvadorans, they don't like any of them, and they're over here, and the black guys are over there, and it's Michigan, and the Michigan State people and the University of Michigan people don't even like each other. And I go in the lunchroom and no one's talking to each other. This is supposed to, he went to the seminar and he said, the lunchroom was supposed to be this place where we're bonding and no one's bonding, so he had us come in and do some work. And one of the examples that they gave us is a shirt tail. So if you're working in a factory, you're always concerned about safety, right? And the example they gave is, David, if I see you and you're on that other squad, I don't like you. Your shirt tail's hanging out. But because I don't like you, I'm not going to say anything to you. Well, your shirt tail is hanging out in a factory. That's dangerous. Your shirt tail gets caught in something. You could get hurt. You could get killed, if you're pulled into something like that. Factory line could stop. You have to wait till OSHA comes back and gives you the clearance to get the machines up and running again. Everybody's got to go home. That's 3 days of productivity, all because I don't like you. So he's trying to create an environment where maybe if people don't like each other, they can at least